Welcome to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. It is Friday, February 13th, not a full moon, but how many werewolf stories do you think that Stephen King has written?
3?
That is exactly the count that I got. At least 3. There's Cycle of the Werewolf, The Talisman, and it actually turns into a werewolf or a wolf hybrid at
In
some
the
point.
book?
Yeah, in the book, I think in the movies too.
I don't remember him turning into a werewolf in the movies.
Okay, well, one of the movies, maybe? I don't know. Out of all the books that he's written less than I thought. He's only written about 70.
It's only 70? I
Right,
thought it would have
doesn't it
been in the
feel like
hundreds.
Yeah, but it makes sense because there's like a cognitive bias. Once you start hearing about Stephen King, he's everywhere in adaptations, his books. And so it just like it makes you think that there's a lot more content out there. Well, then you have an author like James Patterson here, who has also written about werewolves and wolf hybrids in his Maximum Ride series. He has over 400 books that have been published and
Wow.
counting. A lot of that, though, well, he has the Guinness Book of World Records, first of all, for highest number of hardcover best-selling books. But the more important thing to note about that is that he tends to co-author his books. So he'll write in 60, 70-page outline, then he will bring on a ghostwriter or someone who he will also credit, and they will work together to create a book, and he'll spit them out like crazy. So James Patterson is a different type of prolific author than King, and they have been crossed with one another.
What do you mean?
They have been crossed because in 2009, a very famous Stephen King USA Weekend interview, he came out and he called Patterson a terrible writer. Again, because of the fact that he just uses all these other people to write his actual stories. And then in September 2016, Patterson announced that he had written a new book called The Murder of Stephen King.
So this is like a real beef, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
But then he had to pull the book because he said he didn't want to cause King or his family any discomfort. And if you look into those interviews, apparently he had like made a good, like, I don't know, 1,000 or so copies of the book. Maybe it was less than that, but he still has actual copies of the book. But I think it was like Stephen King's wife who reached out or who had been like a victim of one of Stephen King's fans.
Mm.
And it was just like, we don't want to do this. And so now whenever Patterson talks about him, he tries to put him like, oh, he's one of my favorite authors, even if he doesn't like me that much. You know, that type of deal.
Okay, but Stephen King still doesn't like him, it seems like.
I would not. Yeah, I don't think that they'd be doing a poker club together or anything. So Alex Cross is one of James Patterson's most famous characters. It started as a crime thriller series character that began in 1993. 3 movies have been made with Alex Cross.
I remember the most recent one came out in 2012, like around October.
With Tyler Perry.
Yeah, with Tyler Perry, and it had a similar tone as a lot of movies that were coming out in 2012, like Jack Reacher, Safe House, Contraband, and like The Bourne Legacy.
That's how they were trying to sell it?
Well, I felt like it was supposed to be really gritty. I never watched it, but I know that it got panned by critics.
That
right?
one got panned. The previous ones by Morgan Freeman in Kiss the Girls 1997, Along Came Spider in 2001, those were more mixed review. In fact, I think Denzel was up for the part before Morgan Freeman took it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that they obviously aged him up to play the character, or they aged the character up to fit Morgan Freeman at that time, because I think he was already in his 50s. And usually Alex Cross is supposed to be in his late 30s to early 40s. However, if you look at the extent of his credentials, it is crazy to think, because he's not only just like some cop, right? He's a famous forensic psychologist
Right.
who also works as a detective, right?
Yeah, I would say he's more a cop, though, in this TV series.
Yeah, so he hasn't actually like gone through all the schooling he would need to become a psychologist. Because I looked up other fictional famous forensic psychologists, and you got answers like Tim Roth in Lie to Me, and you got people like Dr. Lance Sweets in Bones, but he wasn't a detective.
There's times where he's interviewing people where he's like kind of playing games, so you can see kind of the background of that. But I would say most of the time, at least in the like a little over season that I watched, he's just really a cop.
I hope you watched a little over season, because you watched the first season and you watched the first 3 episodes here. The first 3 episodes here are called Harrow, Scatter, and Feed, the topic of our review today. The TV show was announced in 2020. Ben Watkins who worked on other shows before this, but an executive at Paramount actually reached out to him. And I was surprised that it says Paramount because it's a Prime series.
Right.
But whenever you're watching the Prime series, Paramount logo comes up pretty soon into the intro. And he wanted Ben Watkins wants the thing to go like 10 seasons, but he immediately had a 4-year plan in mind. So at the very least, Amazon was like, all right, we're giving you one season. They greenlit it for a second season before the first season was even out.
Wow.
And that's not that impressive. They make that seem like it's a bigger deal than it is, don't they?
Well, before like the premiere, I always think that just shows how much
confidence.
Amazon has. Yeah, how much confidence Amazon has in the series.
Without taking too much away from that, it was funny to read one of these fan comments that said, "I love Prime's cottage industry of crime cop series titled after the protagonist's last name: Bosch, Reacher,
Mhm.
Cross, Ballard. I'm sure there's more to come."
Jack Ryan.
Jack. Well, yeah, that's both names though. This is just the last
Just
name
the
that
last
we're looking
name.
at. But does Cross remind you more of Jack Ryan or like Jack Bauer? Is he someone who's a loose cannon, or is he someone who is fighting for? I don't know. Like it feels like Jack Ryan has more of a tie to the government, despite fighting so much conspiracy.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that he's really like either because he's mostly like those people. They'll break the law, but they'll
Yes.
do it because there's like they have to. You know what I mean? And I
Right.
don't really think that Cross ever comes across that in
In
the
the first
series.
season, his wife dies in like the first scene, right?
Yeah, and I knew that
Then
was
he's
going to
going to be like
happen.
defined by anger. I know that in the first episode, he's admitting to fault when he like beat someone up trying to find out
Right,
a lead on his wife's murder.
trying to find out who did it.
Yes, so he does break the law, but he then takes account for his
And
mistakes.
that
Yes,
video gets leaked like I would say midway through season
and
1.
it was his best friend who leaked it, right? Sampson? Yes, no.
No, Samson was the one
Oh,
that
I
did it.
thought I've misunderstood then. But Sampson, it's fine. So let's talk about the casting here. Aldis Hodge, who played Voodoo in Friday Night Lights. You got him in Leverage. He's been an Invisible Man. I got a 3 Truths, 1 Lie game for you right
Okay.
here. He is an online poker. He is in an online poker club with Taylor Quiche. Hodge is a self-taught horologist and watchmaker. He wants to play Black Panther, but Marvel hasn't reached out yet. And he was one of the kids on Sesame Street.
I'm gonna go with he was one of the kids on Sesame Street.
No, him and his brother were both kids on Sesame Street.
So is it the Taylor Quiche one that's
Yes, it
lie?
is the Taylor Quiche one. I don't know if he keeps up with his Friday Night Lights crew. However, the last episode of this, or the most recent episode across, the third one, has him back in Texas
Yeah.
and doing some rodeo dancing. And so, yeah, that's
I was really hoping the Taylor Quiche one was going to be true. Aldis Hodge, he is the best thing about this TV series. I would say he's almost the savior of
very
it.
charismatic
'Cause,
character.
Yeah, I think that like having him as Cross definitely upgrades the show from what it could have been. Because
Charisma level wise, how does that compare to Countdown last year, where you have the main character who Dean from Supernatural?
Jensen Ackles.
Yes, he's a very well liked dude. Does he carry the show in the same way that guy carried
No,
that
I
show?
think Aldis Hodge does even a better job because, like, the first season I felt like had such a lack of focus that if we weren't following someone as good as Aldis Hodge was in this role, that it really would just been lost because we keep on switching villains. First, it's Bobby Trey, who was a former cop, but he kind of has his fingers in
It's like
everything
evil
that's
Kevin
illegal.
Hart
Yeah,
because he's
right.
so short.
And he's
I
supposed
couldn't find out what his actual height was.
He also has a really annoying name for Cross, which is Crossy Cross. That's what he calls him the whole entire time. Then it switched to Ed Ramsey, who was a killer who liked to change the appearance of his victims that he would kidnap.
It's like a Mission Impossible in reverse. I swear I've read other books that have kind of a similar thing. In fact, I think there was like an old Batman Beyond episode where like Clayface was changing the victim's look because he was like a plastic surgeon.
Yeah,
or
and
something.
he was trying, and with Ed Ramsey, he was trying to match infamous murderers.
But Ed Ramsey, wasn't he like the arch nemesis in this series for a while?
He again, he changed to him being the villain, I would say probably midway through.
But you're saying that
But then that changes, yeah, because even by the end of the last episode, then suddenly Miss Nancy, who was one of the grandma's friends, she was supposed to be like the ultimate villain because she was the one that went after Cross's wife and got her killed, all because she was mad that Cross kind of put away Deidre, who was her son Peter's girlfriend at
I
the time.
do remember that they said that Miss Nancy, when she tried out for her role, that she only knew it to be like a small part, but only like the showrunner knew that it was going to be the Ben Watkins guy knew that it was going to be a longer term thing, like that there'd be a twist at the end. And so he knew that he was casting for someone. He needed to do a better job casting than say someone who would just be in there for a day.
Still, it felt so convoluted and silly by the end that I would give the series like a 4 out of 10. The first season, at least,
How
I'd
about
give it
the
like
John
4 out of 10.
Barenthal series earlier, where that
His and
also
Hers?
has
Yes, it was like that. In fact, I had like a comparisons list of kind of all of them. There was Hints of Paradise. I had His and Hers there. Memory of a Killer, Bosch. We mentioned like some of them, but that
those are
really
all
just
over the
comes.
map though. Seems
Yeah.
a very chaotic series.
Well, I think that a lot of them have to do, like, for example, with Memory of a Killer, it's supposed to be very psychological, right? Like, Cross within the first season, even though his wife dies in the first scene, he's dealing with that throughout
I
the
did catch
entire
a scene
series.
in this where Cross was in the season where Cross was interviewing, I think, Lincoln, and then like Lincoln gives an answer, and suddenly the camera angle changes and it goes dark, and then you see kind of into his head, which
Yep.
I'm not used to seeing in like a typical cop show. One of the things I was expecting you to compare it to was either Justified, because like there's kind of a weird relationship between the criminals and the law in that series, or also, but I think the most is Mayans MC.
Mayans MC.
Yes, I feel like the character arc in the second season, primarily with these villains that we're seeing, is very similar to what I got from that one lady in Mayans MC who went all around the world murdering, like being a
You're talking
vigilante.
about Angel's girlfriend in
Angel's
Mayans MC.
girlfriend. Yes, and so how would you compare those two characters, Luz and Angel's girlfriend in Mayans MC?
Well, Luz, I thought was the girl from Legion, but then I
Right.
saw
So
that she's actually the girl from Upload, right?
well, she's the girl from Upload, but see, I get those two confused as well. She's a little bit older, but they played sisters in Roswell, New Mexico. So that's
Uh,
why there's that confusion. Is they actually do look alike. They were cast to be sisters, and yeah, she's in Upload, and now she's in this.
and that's why she
But
looks so
how does
familiar.
her villainy and
There
her because she's not just a straight up villain. People are praying to
No,
her.
they're very similar. In fact, that's why I liked so much about season 2 was the changes because with Ed Ramsey, where he was just evil for it felt like being the sake of being evil,
Yeah.
these characters, Rebecca and Donnie, I was glad to see Wes Chatham show up. They actually are out for revenge because they killed someone named Richard who was basically supposed to be, I felt like a stand-in for Epstein's Island, like Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You think so? Within the first scene when they go over
When
there
they
and
go
they
to their
literally
own
have a bunch of
island.
underage girls and old
Yes.
men that are like feeding on
And
them.
he's about to have sex with one, and yeah, she's saving all of them, but then she kind of blames Richard for her mom dying when she was a little girl, so she kills him and then cuts off his fingers, and she vows vengeance basically on anyone associated with him,
And
all the rich and
isn't that what
powerful.
Angel's girlfriend sort of did?
Yep.
Because she was going to these immigration centers and finding these kids who are kind of like being beat up or taken advantage
Right.
of, and she was like going down the line of different officials who had like caused that and taking them out.
And season 1 kind of hinted at that because Kayla is, she's one of the cops. She's
Right.
actually has a way bigger role in
I
season 2
want
than
to.
season
So for
1.
a second, Samson and Kayla are like the two other big characters in Alex Cross.
Right.
Now, Samson in the book it's his partner. They're best friends,
John
right?
Sampson.
I know that there's some like feud going on this season because of something with Samson's mom, but avoiding that, Samson in the books is 6'9", which is taller than Reacher in his books.
6'9".
And the person who plays him in this, Isaiah Mustafa, you know that name? He's the guy
Yeah.
from the Old Spice commercials and also from like Chuck way back in the day.
He's the guy who
NFL or he was some NFL player.
the Old Spice commercials where he had kind of beef with Tyler Cruz, right?
Tyler Cruz?
Or Terry Crews.
Terry Crews, there you go. Yeah, no, but he's 6'4", so he's a very tall dude.
But he doesn't hit the 6'9".
He's not Shaq. Yeah, he's not that tall. So yeah, and then the other one was Kayla Craig. in the books, Kyle Craig is like, I think the arch nemesis FBI dude. In this, it seems like they're much more frenemies, especially by the end of episode 3, where they hook up Kayla Craig now, so they switch genders, played by Alona Tal, Joe from Supernatural. So it's weird seeing her play like a kid in that, and now having grown up to be like a full blown detective or a FBI whatever
Well,
lady.
yeah, because in the first season, she was supposed to be someone that was helping Cross a lot with the case, but then at the, like, end credit scene of season 1, she's talking to Bobby Trey again, kind of the Kevin Hart villain that we were talking about,
Right. He's
and
like a
she
fixer, but kind of a corrupt copish
Right,
type.
and she wants him to take the fall kind of for being the fanboy killer who is really who Ed Ramsey was, but she also says that she will give him money and full immunity if he kind of starts giving her names of, like, high-profiling officials and politicians, so I wasn't too surprised when suddenly, like, that seems kind of where season 2 is going more so, because season 1, and this is what I mean by the changes being good for season 2, is that season 1 was more like a horror TV series, I felt like, and season 2, it's like a political thriller, and I think that that fits way more with the Alex Cross character as someone who doesn't have any really background on it.
Was there anything as dark as the Epstein, like, blowing up the island in season 1?
In season
Because
1,
people have called it
uh
darker. So even though you're saying that season 1 had more of a horror element, all the
I
reviews
meant
I've
more I meant more horror element because Ed Ramsey we'd always get, like, a shot of his lair where he was keeping Shannon, the person that he was trying to change, I would say, but no, I think that probably the Epstein's Island thing probably is bigger,
takes
yeah,
the cake.
darker, yeah.
All right, so thematic social issues. It seems like this season is really honing in on it. One of the interviews Ben Watkins gave was that he said when he was learning, and they were writing for like these different crime shows. The advice that he received was like run at the issues. So
Right,
like he actually says he wrote a lot of this season in 2023 before it was even as relevant as it is. Like the stories were still out there, but the whole thing with what Epstein became and all
right.
the immigration issues that we're seeing today,
That's just
they've
luck
only
in terms of timing,
they've
really.
only grown. It is wild though the amount of stuff he's trying to throw in there because you've got the vigilantism, the abuse of power with the cops shooting people, Epstein. You got tension between the agencies because the DHS and the FBI and the cops don't seem to like each other,
You
and they're
have
not
a
even all in
s
DC anymore.
you have, like, an Elon Musk type too in Lance Duran.
Always now. It seems like the billionaire CEO, from Billions to Succession to Empire to The Morning Show to Industry to The Night Manager, what do they have in common? They're all very nice people, right? Every
on
time they show a
on the
billionaire,
surface,
it's
right.
never even really on the surface. It feels like they're always sarcastic bastards, and then you look a layer deep and they're even worse. Like,
Well,
that's how it feels.
I was so glad to see that Matthew Lillard was going to be in the series
He
because
had
I
to
didn't
try
even
out for the part.
he tried out
He
for
had
it.
to, after 15 years, they made him try out.
That's so strange because I feel like he's such a at least big enough of a name where he wouldn't have to give an audition or
Well, after
anything
the
like
Quentin
that.
Tarantino news, they were like, "We don't trust you." As no, it was just more because I think the showrunner was like, "You're such a famous dude. I really want to make sure that if you play this part, people won't just see you as like Shaggy or something like that." And so
Yeah.
I guess he did it in a non-insulting manner. He went and read for the part, and he got it.
Lance Durand, who is the owner of Crestbook, which is like a huge company, but he is kind of focused on agriculture. That's really what it is. But he's given fingers during the event, fingers from of Richard, because they know, or at least Rebecca and Donnie know, that Lance is tied to him somehow.
So Rebecca is Luz, right?
Yes.
Yes. So with Luz and Donnie, it seems like that three finger thing is not only like a trophy for having taken these guys out, but it seems like by the end, when we find out that she's actually working with Lincoln, the guy who Alex Cross has been in the crosshairs
Right.
of
Lincoln
Alex Cross the
Esteban.
entire time,
Yeah.
that he's also missing those fingers, right?
Yeah.
I read that. So I'm thinking maybe he was one of the kids that was tortured. That was a way that and that's like their way of torturing them right before killing off all these villains.
So they talked about it a little bit in episode 2, and
Uh-huh.
I think what they said was that it's definitely supposed to be punishment for the people that are dying. But I think Lincoln Esteban, if I understand this correctly, gave them up on purpose because they for, like, some type of god or deity that he believed in. It was
Oh, he did
something.
it for himself
I believe that's
because
the
he
case.
does believe that she is some sort of, messiah-like creature.
Right, so I think for him, it wasn't so much that, like, it was a punishment or something that happened. I think he did it on purpose, but for all the people that they are hurting, for all the people tied to Richard, yeah, those 3 fingers are supposed to
He
be
also does the
punishment.
creepiest smile that they keep on pointing out every time that the cops are talking
That
to him.
3rd episode, that smile, I mean, we already saw it a little bit on the picture, but that was
To get a
insane, yeah.
picture of it, I would immediately rip up that photo. I wonder how that casting went because it's just like, "Okay, now do your best creepy Joker smile."
But
Um,
one thing I also like about the TV series is season 2 is so much more expansive. Like, really,
bigger
we
budget.
it was in season 1, and I don't know where they filmed, but in season 1, it took
That was, sorry, I know this, it was Ontario.
Ontario,
Yes.
and, it takes place in Washington, DC. In season 2, we start out in Washington, DC, but then we go all over the map in just 3 episodes: Chicago, Texas, Florida, Mexico.
I think it's all Ontario. Just different parts of it, they're able to
But
rig
I
it
mean,
out.
in terms of, like, actually how, like, big the season is getting, I like how they're going at least with, like, bigger stakes, you
It
know?
does seem kinda strange that they would take this random detective from DC and, like, start throwing him all the way around the US. The FBI makes sense, Homeland Security makes a little bit more sense. Just the assholery, though, of that, Homeland Security guy who almost kills Lincoln in the 3rd episode.
Right, after he saved a kid,
When
but
there's, like, a gas station filled with evil people. This is the part where it gets so convoluted, but, like, it's literally a steakhouse where you have all the cops and people ready to go in there with the SWAT team, and then everybody at the gas station from the people unloading the truck, to the people in the truck, to the people just getting served
right, 'cause it
inside.
was human
They all
trafficking,
come
right?
out with guns like they're it was like that scene in Dope Thief?
It was so ridiculous, but I did like the action scene just because of how crazy it did get. It reminded me a little bit of not Mayans MC, but Sons of Anarchy, because there was a lot of times where there
Right.
was like rival gangs, but then secretly cops were looking, but then the cops couldn't interfere because the FBI was there. So when you were dealing with all those powers of authority, that is, I guess you could compare it to that as well.
The overall premise of this season is that Cross does not like the fact that he is being put in charge of defending the billionaire, of trying to save his life, because again, Luz and Donnie are after him, and they're not exactly sure who those two are quite yet. But as they're like going down this rabbit hole of different stuff, that's when Cross ends up hooking up with the FBI girl,
Yeah, with
Kayla,
Kayla.
and at the but they're also moving along in their investigation. So it's all headed towards a big interaction between, and my question, I guess, to you is that does any part of you want to see Luz and Donnie make it?
Most of the time, they're likable characters.
I know, but
That's the
like
weird
the whole
thing.
point is that Cross is supposed to take them down. By the end of this season,
Here's
you
the
would
thing, they're evil enough to the point where it's like if they do end up dying at the end of the season, I won't be too sad about it. I was really disappointed with what they did with Kayla's character though, because I was so glad that because I thought she was a fine character in the first season, was going to be kind of working with Cross in this thing, and then the only
sort of a
reason.
platonic relationship.
Yes, right, and I was completely fine with it, but then when they were hooked up in the 3rd episode, I was like, "Oh, that's the main reason why they did it." Kayla, though, she also has some skeletons in her closet. As we saw, she kind of is like a gray character with the deal that she has with Bobby Trey at the end of the first season, but also there's this thing called bad religion. They found a gun that was tied to bad religion, and I don't think we know what it is quite yet, but Kayla is also tied to them in some way, and
Yeah,
if
her.
it
I saw her boss talking to her about that at the bar or whatever.
right, and if it ever comes out that she, was
Participated,
part of this,
co-conspirator.
yeah, it's completely dumb, but becomes even, like, higher stakes in episode 2 when she's talking to someone named Margaret, and there's this person named, like, Mastermind, and
There's a
Mastermind,
person named
I think
Mastermind.
he's the one that, like, runs Bad Religion, and it's such a problem that even Margaret, who she was friends with on the phone, it reminded me almost of Mr. Robot, the season 1 finale, pulls out a gun and shoots herself right there, and is like, "Don't make him threaten my
It's a
family."
Vincent D'Onofrio first season Daredevil thing where they don't want to say his
Yes,
name.
right.
Yeah, it's got all these different elements going on, and I think that's to the show's like if you're tuning in for that, if you're tuning in to be entertained for the fact that it's just so crazy, there's honky tonk jumping around country music 1 second, pop and rap in the next
Very
scene.
much so. And talking about new songs, completely new intro for this season, which I like way more. It looks
So
way
it's
cooler.
flashy.
It's like a cross between Dexter Resurrection ending credits and Daredevil's opening. Way better song in the background. It's also, yeah, because the season one had like a weird song that was like a jazzy song that I didn't really feel like fit the tone.
You do hate jazz.
This no, just for this show, it didn't really fit with how dark it was trying to be. But here, it's like a very dramatic song, so I like the intro way more. Also,
Yeah, but as you've hinted, there's also been quite some backlash on the fact that like the plot is kind of ridiculous. The decisions by the characters are really dumb sometimes.
there's subplots that don't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
For example, Elle was Cross's love interest in the first season.
And yeah, some people have complained she's gotten too much airtime this time.
It doesn't really make sense why she's even in the show because Cross and Sampson are talking in a restaurant and Sampson is like, you have to get over her. I think that would have been fine. Like, she wouldn't have had to be in the show otherwise.
And her excuse is that she's too close to the kids.
That she's too close to the kids, but it's also just like, in terms of like the actual show itself, I didn't understand it too much. Sampson's mom being part of like a homicide and then him not knowing that his mom was alive, but apparently Cross knew this for decades and kept it a secret, that seemed really dumb.
Just reading that plot, that like they're taking the secondary best friend character and throwing him on this kind of just journey where we know that they're going to end up friends still at the
Right.
end of it, felt like we don't know what to do with you this season, and so we're going to do this. It feels like there is just less Sampson in general, and so like when they show him, they just have to give him something to do.
It was so strange though, because I remember in the first season.
Sorry, but he would be the third wheel that would stop Kayla and Cross from getting together. So
Yeah.
that's probably why they did that.
That's true, but also just in terms of the story, it didn't make much sense. Because I remember in season one, right before they go to the cabin to fight Miss Nancy or whatever, Cross has to go to Sampson to apologize for kind of being as closed off as he's been, for being as much as a dick as he's been, and it makes it seem like there's not going to be any more secrets. But then we get to season two and we learn that Alex Cross has known that Sampson's mom's been alive for 30 years? It completely almost retcons that a little bit.
That is true. How old is Nana Mama's Cross supposed to be? Because I thought that she was Alex's mom. She is Alex's grandmother.
Grandma, yeah.
How is that possible? Do you want to take a guess at what their ages are in real life?
I would guess that the grandma's somewhere around like 80.
She's 73 in real life, and he is 39. 34 years difference. I don't like that math. I do not like that math. So it's kind of strange they didn't just make it the mom's character. Maybe that's just because of the books being the way they are.
The mom's character in the first
she
season.
is there.
Not in the present storyline because we know that she died, but we do see backflashes of her.
So his wife has died. His mom has died. But now having seen the first 3 episodes, what would you think is the rest of the season arc? Like, where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I know that Bobby Trey is getting very close to finding the files that will wipe Kayla clean. I assume that since Kayla, because I thought she might be the antagonist this season after the post-credit scene in season 1, but it's pretty clear she's supposed to be a protagonist. So I think that she's probably, like, whatever happens with Bad Religion, I think she's going to be okay with. There's probably going to be that love triangle now with Elle, Kayla, and Cross, and I don't know exactly how that's going
to. How do you think Lillard is going to fit in with the Epstein stuff? Like, is it just going to be that he was one of them who wasn't on the island at the time?
We do actually learn a little bit of information. The reason why he knew Richard is that he's someone that they go to for food, like stores go to for food, and during the pandemic, his workers weren't helping, but Richard made them essential workers so that they would help, and that's how they had the connection between the two of them. In terms
of the public connection,
right? That's what he says, and he says once he learned about like the island and the girls, he severed connections.
Never heard that one before.
But I assume that Rebecca and Donnie, if Matthew Lillard dies, I don't know, but they definitely will be having a confrontation with Lance by the end of the season as well. That's my prediction, at least.
What are you giving the show?
I'm going to give it. I think it was better than season 1, but
so far.
But I don't think that I can give it a passing grade. I'll give it a 5.5 out of 2. Or 5.5 out of 10 for season 2.
Okay. The last note I'll give is that they kind of do the Game of Thrones Walking Dead thing where they give out the scripts to the actors kind of like right beforehand so that they have no time to digest it and they're kind of working on it raw,
Yep.
But I think the acting's pretty good in the show for what they're given. It's just kind of wild. In the special effects, I mean, like the gun battles seem real enough.
When it gets to the action, it's fine. Again, you have to turn off your brain and just kind of enjoy it for what it is. But I think if you enjoyed the first season, you'll probably enjoy this one also.
Okay. Well, happy again, Friday the 13th. Also, this is the 13th show that we've reviewed. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.